Good morning, Matthew. Good morning, everybody. Rats ready to go. We're continuing our walk around High Ash this morning, and we're just going to go along the northern boundary of the farm, and we're just going to go down quite a steep bank. Rat is already complaining that we're not going fast enough. Here's a public footpath sign saying public footpath, which is where we've just come from. Behind me, Caister Lane. It's a quarter of a mile. It's actually 3/4 of a mile behind us, and then public footpath to Arming Hall, which is where we're heading. Lakenham, 1 3/4 miles, and that's Boudicca's Way, just across the field there. And this in front of us is Hallback Lane, and I'm wondering if it's anything to do with Arming Hall. So whether this is the path to Arming Hall, I don't know the history of it, but it's a really historical old track, as you'll see as we now progress up it. We've done about close to 3 miles of the 7 miles. I hadn't realised it was going to quite take this long an adventure to get us around the farm. Anyway, we're well underway now. Rat's on the lead in front of me. There he is, leading the way with his bright blue lead around his neck. And this morning he's lost his collar, so I've got him on a bit of a slip knot. That will slow him down. So we've got an old hedge on our left, and we're now coming to the tree line on the right, and every chain on my right hand side we have holly trees to measure out the field. It's quite an unusual thing that used to happen for the old farm workers, and here's one now coming up, a large old ash tree going right up through the middle of it. And so every 22 paces on my way up here, that's a chain in old money, there'll be another holly tree. So this track was completely, Rats decided to have a sniff behind us. Come on, Rat. Goodness me. This track was completely blocked from about 2005, really. It was overgrown with blackthorn scrub, brambles, and it was really an unpleasant task. And the Ramblers got in touch with me at High Ash Farm and said, could I help open it? And they cut a single little track through. You almost had to walk through sideways to get through, but that let me in with the tractor and a little chainsaw, and I spent about 2 weeks cutting it through and made it nice and wide. So you can see here it's a good 8 to 10 metres wide at this point. Lots of old Dutch elm disease, elms, young elms, they're scrub elms, all dead. And because there was bare soil each side of the track, 2 years ago I seeded it with some wildflowers, and these will come into flower June 2023. They're teasels, and there's a lovely display all the way down the side of the track, and I love doing that. All the different soil types you can imagine at High Ash. There's a rabbit warren here, and underneath the blackthorn scrub, pure white silica sand been brought out by the rabbits. You can just see in the background there, right up on the bank, low sun just coming through the blackthorn scrub. Really dense scrub here. It's good walking. We've not had any rain measurable really in February so far, and we're already just about 2 weeks in. Goodness, time's flying away. So heading uphill here, on my right hand side, the other side of the hedge, is a gallop for the horses, and we have horses come from all over the place to enjoy 6 furlongs, about 3/4 of a mile, getting on that way, 8 furlongs to the mile, and it's uphill the whole way, so you can really let your horse go and get it fit. So, and that's about 25-30 metres wide, that gallop. So wow, it's quite a long walk up here, quite steep. Hedge both sides of me now, quite dense. Lovely old ivy there, nearly devoid of its berries. I can see where the berries were. They've been pillaged by fieldfares, redwing. Lots of those have been about this year. So here we go, just coming up on my left to a large area of woodland which belongs to Crown Point Estate, and that's called Arminghall Wood. And this is where the track gets lovely and wide, and I'm sure it is quite historic, this track. There, lovely place to stop for a moment or two and sit underneath this young oak tree, which is about, what, 40 years old. It's going to be a cracking oak. It's about 24 inches through the base at the moment. Give you an idea. There's, to scale, here's Rat, my demented terrier, and this is a lovely oak seat. I'm just going to sit down for a moment, and you've got a lovely view over High Ash Farm in front of us. There, absolutely stunning place to sit and just contemplate the world just for a few minutes. Hello, Ratty. Here he is. Good boy. Come on, let's do a little bit more. Good. So we're carrying on the sharp incline up the hill. You can see the track leading away. 3 or 4 people can walk side by side having a natter, or if you just like some quiet bird watching, you can be solitary. The choice is yours. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting. Ditch on my left, hedge and ditch on my right, and that starts to show us that this was an important byway many centuries ago probably, and really, really heavily used. The centre of the track has been raised up. Obviously it's on the side of a hill, so water over quite a distance can wash down here, and it would have eroded the track. So hence the importance of this quite deep ditch on my left. It's about 4 feet deep. Bearing in mind this is pretty heavy clay, and we're just getting to an interesting area now which fascinates me here. Let's have a little look down on the ground. There, that's what I wanted to see. It's been cobbled. These are rounded stones. I'll just put my finger on some of them so you can actually see under the camera. They're perfectly round, and they're called cobblestones, and they've been laid really closely together, masses of them over the whole distance up the side of this hill. Really amazing. Some of them are quite large, about fist size. And I can remember some of the roads in Norwich back in the 50s when I was at school. Burr Street, one of the streets next to Brackendale School where I went, was also cobbled. But some of those were granite sets, some round the edges were flint, rounded flints, or cobblestones they're called. Love it, look at this. Oh, beauties here. I'll put the camera down close. There, you can see them laid in. And when they go down on the clay, they sink in the clay and they hold themselves perfectly firmly. So obviously this was hugely important. The ground's so hard here, tree roots can't penetrate the soil with all those cobblestones. So in order to find water, this is a little bit of a rough ride if you're in a wheelchair. The roots have come over the top of the soil. Oh dear, we're going to have some barking now. 2 little greyhounds coming up in front of us, and let's have a look. Hope we're not going to have a dog fight in the middle of the track. Hello. Good boy, very good. 2 of the walkers coming down Hallback Lane. We're lucky. And this is where I'll finish this little bit of section, because we're getting near the top of the hill, and I love this little area. It's really historic. And here's what you would call a pot-bellied oak. But it's an oak tree with a special name, because about 6 feet up the trunk, many years ago, probably several hundred years ago, a very large lower limb dropped out of the side of this oak tree, and I'm just going down into the ditch so you can have a look. Close up now, it is a perfect map of Africa. And so this old, venerable old oak tree, which is exactly what it is, there's no other word to describe it, it's hundreds of years old, it is near the end of its life, and the shape of the whole is a perfect map of Africa. You can see where the Sahara would be across the top, Tunisia at the top, and Cape Town, South Africa, right at the bottom. So there we are, a little bit of Africa at High Ash Farm on Hallback Lane. And there's the wonderful Arming Hall wood, which in a week or two will be white, not with snowdrops, but with wooden anemones and bluebells as well on that heavy clay. And if you don't believe me that it's heavy, just look at the base of this tree. We often see clay as yellow, but right down here it is so hard and dry with the flint in it and all the chalk that the clay appears to be almost white, and that is what you would call marl. Clay with lots and lots of chalk in it. Obviously there's that village on the outskirts of Norwich on the west side called Marlingford, which when I went to college at Easton also had this soil type. Used to be dug up by hand, horse and cart, loaded on, taken to sandy soil. Eastern hangings, for example, a good field there to put marl on, and that was meant to improve the soil type. There we are. When we're back to the track, I didn't notice two walkers, perfect sight ahead of me. They walked in behind me. I think they thought I was a bit potty. Oh, they turned around to have a look. Here we go, just about to finish here. Track is still cobbled. There's Red running away. And a beautiful, beautiful hornbeam to finish off our walk. And an even larger oak just coming up. So, see you again in a short while, where we'll continue the walk on Boudica Way. So there we are. See you soon.